Before you can become a candidate for UU ministry, you have to take a battery of tests to see if you have the right characteristics and skills for someone going into something like ministry. It's a career assessment that is especially designed for ministers, not UU ministers, but ministers in general. I signed up with the Career Assessment Center at Columbia Theological School in Decatur, Georgia, which is a Presbyterian seminary and the closest assessment center to me. They sent me some tests that I took at home and sent back, and I had to go to the center to do some others. These included psychological assessments, personality assessments, and more. They would really put you through it to get to be a minister. They want to make sure you're all right for it, I think. I was given feedback by the director of the center, and all seemed to be fine. Then he said I would need to speak to their psychologist as well. So I went to this other room, and there was a young man who shared with me that all my attributes were compatible with ministry, but he did have a question and perhaps a concern. Did I know, he said, that my responses were more in line with those of a man than a woman? And did I think that would be a problem for my ministry? I told him that I did not know, but I was not surprised, and that it did not matter, for I was a Unitarian Universalist, and we were all in favor of gender bending. Then I gave him a sweet, dimpled smile and added, but I can assure you, I have a feminine side. He blushed and said I passed. That was in 2001. I would hope that in 2022, this psychologist would no longer have that concern. But many people still have the need to put us in boxes and have us display characteristics that match the categories on our birth certificates. Fortunately, people like me often have more leeway than those who have the male box checked on those birth certificates, when it comes at least to being more flexible with gender. Possibly because the males are better than females still exists in so much of our society. It's okay for our girls to be tomboys, or to display characteristics, or take on some jobs that may not be seen as something typically feminine. Now, I'm not saying that girls do not have a tough time if they have more masculine characteristics or choose roles that have been traditionally seen as more masculine. There is plenty of adversity and discrimination to go around, and we should be over it, especially as Unitarian Universalists. And today we should celebrate the progress we have made, hoping to do better. First, I want to celebrate. I want to celebrate that I, as a woman, had no problem with completing my preparation for ministry or doing my work as a UU minister because I am a woman. That was not the case in the denomination where I initially felt called to minister. My first preaching opportunities came when I was in college, and my then husband, Fred, and I represented the Baptist Student Union as we shared with the prisoners at the Bullitt County prison camp. Now, I was supposed to play the piano, and he was supposed to preach. But Fred didn't really want to prepare a sermon or preach, and we decided that I would preach, and we just wouldn't tell anyone. The prisoners didn't seem to care. They were just thankful to have some time away from their prison cells. Of course, I did play the piano too. Southern Baptists are still not in favor of ordaining women. And it's 2022. So I know what that feels like. And when I got to the UU seminariate Meadville, Lombard, and Chicago, though, the classes had more women than men. Hallelujah. And for many years now, women ministers have outnumbered men in the UU world. Of course, some of the larger churches still have a preference for men as ministers, but we are getting there. Our congregations are also likely to have women in leadership roles, so much so that we now find ourselves having to be more affirmative in trying to make sure we encourage men and others to participate more. Similarly, as UUs, we've been on the forefront of changing our languages and songs and readings and curriculum so that all are included. You remember in our little Christmas nativity play we don't have wise men. We have wise ones, and anyone can play the part. I also want to celebrate that we're becoming more welcoming of trans folks and those who may identify as non-binary or genderqueer. Now, I admit that those of us in my generation sometimes have struggles with using the right pronouns, but we are getting there. Now, it may be hard for some, even UUs, to think in gender, in terms of gender in non-binary terms. For many, it is a binary. Check one of the two boxes provided, that's it. And not only should you check the boxes, but wear the clothes that go with it and more. However, there are examples of binaries that most of us have been subjected to that we as UUs have rejected. For example, many of us grew up learning that you were saved or not, and therefore you were going to heaven or to hell. That's the ultimate binary, right? Some grew up with very specific teaching and creed, and if you did not believe and follow those words, then you were an outcast, a heretic, unwanted, and rejected by God and others. But we felt out of place. Something didn't feel right about it. We didn't fit into that binary. So what did we do? We found UU. UUs accept that there are many paths, many theological and philosophical journeys that we can take as human beings, and what is helpful for one may not be helpful for another. So one of our principles is that we support one another on our own paths. Unitarian Universalist congregations have folks who identify as Christians, Jews, Buddhists, humanists, pagans, agnostics, atheists, naturalists, freethinkers, New Agers, and more. Talk about alphabet soup. That's us theologically. We accept that people use different words in their prayers and affirmations, and we attempt to use words that we recite together that everyone can recite with authenticity. So we know how to move beyond a binary. We've done it. We've done it. And we can do it with gender as well. Now, UUs sometimes have had groups that identify by gender. We have Women's Spirit at the Mountain. I know there's a gay men's group that meets at the mountain as well. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with what one may call affinity groups, getting together with others who identify the same way you do. Even religious identity groups in some larger churches, they have those for the different theologies people may have. But if that is all we do, it's limiting. So I'm glad that most of our activities are open to all. But have we done enough to make sure that those who do not fit into one of those binary identities feel welcome here? Have we been as inviting and open as possible to folks who may identify as trans, non-binary, or gender fluid? In reality, if we are honest with ourselves, most of us are kind of gender fluid in some situations. We enjoy activities and ideas that many would put in a category of male or female, but for us, it's just something we like or something we do well. For example, when we sing, I try not to refer to men's voices and women's voices because some of our women, like me, kind of like to sing kind of on the low side, especially as you get older. Got some pretty good tenors in here. And thankfully, McDonald's changed their policy a few years ago and now instruct employees not to ask the kids if they want a boy toy or a girl toy. Sometimes they just have one toy. If they do have a couple of different toys, they say, well, do you want the Barbie toy or the Hot Wheels toy? They tell what the toy is, and they can choose the toy, not whether it's for a girl or a boy. Eventually, many things that were labeled by gender will not be. We will have moved beyond those binaries. Just as becoming a UU was freeing for lots of us in many ways, moving beyond the hard gender binaries will be freeing as well. Reverend Lynn Cox states, gender as a concept is dazzling in its possibilities. Our dominant culture and our language might lead us to act as if there are only two genders. When we listen to the real experiences of all our friends and neighbors and siblings, and some of us when we listen to the songs in our own hearts, we may find there are many more perspectives. Gender is a dance of billions of hands and feet and wheels, each moving with their own rhythm and yet unified together in the spirit of life. She says, gender is a symphony of expression and experience, a multi-layered witness to beauty and the wholeness of humanity. Now, maybe thinking of gender in terms of a symphony is a good metaphor. For when we are part of a symphony, we choose an instrument to play, perhaps one that we like or one that we're good at, and we perform with it. In the 1990s, Judith Butler confronted academicians with the theory that not only was gender socially constructed, it was indeed a performance. We perform gender, sometimes without realizing that we have a choice of what instrument to play. But indeed, in a symphony, they are not just violins and drums. In her sermon on Gender as Symphony, Lynn Cox states, my transgender, agender, gender fluid, and gender non-conforming friends showed me that the symphony of human experience is broader than many of us realize. These friends changed the melodies in beautiful ways, or they improvised music with courage and creativity, or they provided something that was even beyond the sheet music. Aesthetics are lighting shining brightly from within their hearts. When every person can be fully and authentically themselves, the concert hall of human experience brings us into deeper connection with the spirit of life. Now, many of us are cisgendered folks. That's that we identify with the gender that is associated with our birth sex identification. But cisgendered folks are part of the symphony as well and can share open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands with others as allies and fellow advocates in the struggle for gender inclusivity. When we do that, we can make some beautiful music together. And that brings me to my closing. Even with my little bit of a hoarse voice, I'm going to attempt to sing a song. I sing this song to honor many folks. It's for those young women in Southern Baptist, Catholic, Mormon, and other congregations who cannot answer their call to ministry because they don't have the right body parts. It's for the 8th grade boy who loves art and poetry, but who signs up to play football in high school, but he's never liked sports because he thinks he needs to do that to fit in. And so his dad will be proud of him. It's for the many folks who do identify as transgender, non-gender, genderqueer, and gender fluid, who find it difficult to live in a world so constrained by the gender binary, and hope they don't have to wait 39 years like Reverend Jamie Yandel before someone uses their correct pronoun without being prompted. This song is one in our hymn book. It's a song that you heard played by jazz musician Billy Taylor when we had our greeting time. He may not have written that song about gender inclusion, but it fits really well, and I feel that he would be happy for it to be used to encourage any of us who feel chained to boxes and binaries. It's called I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free. And if you feel like snapping your fingers with it or clapping your hands lightly, feel free to do so. Now, the last line of each verse repeats, so I'll wave my arms for you to sing it with me. I got to get me a little sip of water first. And also probably hit a note, so I'll start low enough that I won't give out with the way my voice is. I wish I knew how it would feel to be free. I wish I could break all these chains holding me. I wish I could say all the things I could say 'em loud, say 'em clear for the whole world to hear. Say it with me. Say 'em loud, say 'em clear for the whole world to hear. I wish I could share all the love in my heart. Remove all the bars that still keep us apart. I wish you could know what it means to be me. Then you'd see and agree everyone should be free. Then you'd see and agree everyone should be free. Let me get this down a little further so I can do that next word. I wish I could give all I'm longing to give. I wish I could live like I'm longing to live. I wish I could do all the things I can do, though I'm way overdue. I'd be starting anew, though I'm way overdue. I'd be starting anew. I wish I could be like a bird in the sky. How sweet it would be if I found I could fly. I'd soar to the sun and look down at the sea. Then I'd sing 'cause I'd know how it feels to be free. Then I'd sing 'cause I'd know how it feels to be free. May it be so. May it be so.